49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick decided not to stand for the national anthem, and some football fans are not standing for that kind of behavior. Now, the reason why he did this was politically motivated. He was trying to make a point about Black Lives Matter, about some of the police brutality against the black community, and he released a statement about it. He says, "I'm not going to stand up to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder." Now, of course, some people were in favor of this type of political speech, others not so in favor. Let's give you a quick example of some of the actions people are taking against Kaepernick.
Okay, obviously later his house burned down.
No, as I was watching that, I'm like, oh my God, please be careful. Like, I mean, if this is what you feel like you need to do, fine, just be careful.
Just in case you thought I wasn't kidding, yes, his house did not burn down as far as we know. But you know, 12% of the guys are like, oh yeah, right, I gotta put it out. Oh, I don't know what to do next. So he's got a lot of criticism. Anna's gonna tell you more about it in a sec. First off, was the right thing? Yes. Now, would I have done it? No. So what do I mean by that? So I love the American flag. I've talked about it a lot before. That flag isn't theirs. It's all of ours. And so I believe in the ideas and the principles of America. So I stand for the anthem, and I think that's the right thing to do. I think that you fight within the system, and America has set up a good system for us to be able to succeed in that way. So it's not what I would have done. But the reason I like it is because it's an athlete who has some sort of spotlight, as you can tell because of the extreme reaction, right? And he could put that spotlight on an issue that matters so we get to the right fix. So now I happen to disagree with the manner in which he did it, but I think that's a lot less important than the fact that he's willing to risk things. And this is not a guy who's that well established. Believe me, I had him on my fantasy team. He pulverized my team single-handedly. So I got no love for Colin Kaepernick. So, but he's at least taking a stance. Now, for example, I asked LeBron James to take more of a stance when they shot Tamir Rice, and then they charged his family $500 to transport his body back to the hospital. Now, luckily, that was so egregious that they walked that back the next day. But, you know, LeBron James once wore a T-shirt, and then later at the Olympics, the other stars did something, and yada, yada. He could have sat out a game, and it would have made gigantic news. And when it makes news, it at least starts a conversation about, look, people are angry. What are they angry about? What are they so angry about? Oh, maybe we get some other Americans to think, hey, you know what? Perhaps if it was my kid who was being shot when he's 12 years old with a toy gun, I'd be super mad, and I'd want to fix the system. Now, unfortunately, that is not how most people who are critics of Kaepernick have responded in this case.
Right. I'll give you another example. One man by the name of Matt Helling writes, get the hell out of our country if you don't want to stand for our national anthem, Colin Kaepernick. The nation has made you millions. # piece of shit. So, look, first of all, content of his political activism aside, I always find it really interesting when people like lose it over someone who doesn't stand for the national anthem, right? Like, does that make you question your love for this country? Does that, like, why? Okay, so he doesn't want to stand for the national anthem. Like, why are heads exploding over this? Okay, even if it was for something that you don't agree with, even if it's for something that's stupid. Like, for instance, let's say he didn't want to stand for the national anthem because we actually did something about police brutality, and I was against that, right? I wouldn't be offended that he's not standing for the national anthem. That's a form of political speech. I get offended when people attack one another viciously, when they try to tear one another down viciously, when it doesn't actually lead to a dialogue, right? And ironically enough, the same people who run around whining and crying about safe spaces on college campuses apparently need a safe space from Colin Kaepernick not standing up for the national anthem.
Okay, so look, and I can relate to this because remember, I used to be a Republican, and this is one of the issues I was conservative on. And I remember I being really mad that Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf did not used to stand up for the national anthem. He was a basketball player who was pretty good back then, and got into huge debates with my liberal friends. And I thought, look, you're spitting in the eye of this country that has provided for you and for all of us. That's not the productive way to do it. And I still believe that it's not the best way to do it. But I've matured over the years and realized, okay, I don't agree with it. That doesn't mean that he doesn't have a right to do it. It isn't clearly a form of expression. I mean, how insane is it that Supreme Court says that corporations bribing politicians is a form of expression, but yet there are people who think not standing for the national anthem is not a form of expression. Of course it's a form of expression. So I realize now that's like his opinion, man. And we get to have those in this country. That's the whole point of the country. So if you're a patriotic American, then you should realize, and I should have realized back then, that this is not such a bad thing to do. It's an American thing to do, to disagree, and disagree in different ways, and show that in different ways.
I just feel like someone's patriotism or lack of patriotism says nothing about me or my love for the country. And so if someone feels like they've been wronged by the country, which, by the way, many Americans do, I'm not going to be up in arms because they didn't respect the national anthem. Like, I get it, right? People get all up in arms about patriotism. But you know what would be much more patriotic? Doing things that would actually help fellow Americans instead of brushing a gigantic problem under the rug and pretending like it doesn't exist, right? If you are really patriotic, you look out for your fellow Americans. But that's not what we're seeing in the country right now. We lack empathy. We're all very individualistic. This country was founded on, being a community and working together. We don't do that anymore. Now it's all us versus them. I'm out for myself. Everyone else can go F themselves.
Support independent media by becoming a member of the Young Turks at tytnetwork.com/join.